Hi, everybody. It's Lynn McTaggart. I'm really excited to share with you secrets of the power of eight. And I'm going to be taking lots of questions from you during this live intention session. And I'm hoping to give you some good information that you can use in your life, in your Power of Eight group, in your intentions going forward. So do feel free to ask questions, and we'll be checking all the time about which questions are being asked, particularly with the people who are live on my teleseminar now. So a lot of people think that intention is nothing more than a bit of meditation. But I want to share with you some information and a couple of videos as well to show you why it's different. So before I take questions, I want to share some information with you, and I also want to hold a group intention together. So as we're looking at all of this, I want you to think about a great intention, and you can write it in the chat. People who are on my live webinar, just make some recommendations and follow my instructions, because what I'm going to be talking about today is why it's so important to be specific. But before I do that, I want to share some other information with you. So hang on while I share my screen. And this is going to be great because I can also do an intention with you that's got some music. So let me share my screen with you. And I want to share a little bit of information about intention. So, everybody thinks this is like meditation, but it's really different. Meditation essentially is an attempt to, an attempt to have a cessation of thought, but intention is completely different. Intention is about focusing and using thought with every pore. And we see that also in what happens in the brain, because when you've got meditation, when we're involved in meditation, there's an increase in certain brain waves. They call them alpha and theta brain waves. Those are the brain waves of light dreaming or deep sleep. Those are our slow waves, but also an increase in the parietal lobes. Those are the lobes that, see if you can see me in the little corner here, they sit in the very back of your head, and they distinguish between me and not me in the world. So parietal lobes are the me in relation to the world. And we're very much anchored in the self when we are, our parietal lobes are active, when they're turned on. And also, all of those parts of the brain that are involved in self are actually increased weirdly. Now, the feeling with meditation often is this giant oceanic feeling, but it's not really what's happening in your brain, and it's certainly not what's happening in terms of turning off yourself. So essentially, even though you feel like you are floating, there's essentially an increase in the focus on yourself. But with intention, particularly Power of Eight groups, the very opposite occurs. You get off of yourself in the deepest sense. You not only turn off the inessentials, but you turn off you. You turn off you as an isolated individual self. And I think that's the most important aspect of this. And we saw this in these studies because I was lucky enough to work with Life University, the largest chiropractic university on the planet, and they offered to put a team of neuroscientists at my disposal and to work on examining what's going on in the brain during Power of Eight groups. And they found amazing things, very different from meditation. There was no increase in brain waves. There was a decrease in all of them, every single one. So the slow waves like alpha and theta and delta, but also our ordinary waking consciousness and those very fast waves called gamma waves that sometimes get achieved in moments of great focus. So they were also turned way down. What does that mean? That means essentially that the self you know that navigates through the world is dialed down and you get to experience the field. Now, we all have an experience of the field anyway, but this way, when we are in the middle of this experience, you get to feel what it's like to have a total sense of oneness, something we don't get to do in our ordinary lives. We have consciousness constantly of a state of separation. And here you get to experience your natural state when you're in a power of eight. Now, this I want to show you Dr. Stephanie Sullivan, who was the lead neuroscientist who ran our Life University study. And she's going to tell you about what we found. Yeah, let me just go back and play that. There we go.
So honestly, we found some pretty amazing results. Now, qualifying that, and that this was a case series where we only had 6 individuals that we were looking at. But to be honest, it was amazing. Across the board, we had one participant that varied slightly, but everyone else actually had a decrease in their frontal lobe, their parietal lobe, and their temporal lobe, and with some additional decrease in their occipital lobe. And all of this was on the right side of their brain. And of course, my natural thought is that, okay, this is going to look like meditation. So I was honestly surprised when it didn't look like the traditional meditation studies that we've seen where there was an increase in alpha.
Even Dr. Sullivan, who works in neuroscience, studied all the meditation literature and the scientific studies, was really surprised. We found something really different. And that completely corresponded with what people in my Power of Eight groups and my year-long intention masterclasses constantly talk about. They talk about feeling and entering a state of oneness. And it is the place, I am convinced, where healing in your life begins. Now, here's just a couple of suggestions about and comments about what it felt like when they were in that state of oneness. And I'm fascinated, as you probably know if you've been following me, I do scientific experiments called intention experiments. I've run about 35 of them to date, 31 of which have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects. And what I look at is not only the target, but the participants themselves. What's going on with them? And I survey them. And this is what some of them have said during our year-long Power of Eight groups. One of them said, this is so fascinating, during her Power of Eight group, and this was the first one she'd ever done, there was this light, a ball of light, a light being of sorts, she said, as if they were the magnifiers and they were behind us and their energy was coming through us. And that is amazing, as though there are other entities there that are working with this Power of Eight group. Someone else, Sandy, who had such bad knee arthritis, she had scheduled a knee replacement. She couldn't stand on this knee at all. It was wobbly. And she said during her Power of Eight group, it was as if somebody with big mitts was holding my leg. Someone else said it felt like Kundalini type energy poured out onto the floor through my arm. The grass was intensely green, said somebody else. The flowers have never smelled so sweet. both this one and the one before, we're talking about hugely heightened senses, the same kinds of things that occur when you are having a mystical experience. Someone else said, it charged my spiritual battery. They felt essentially forever changed. So these kinds of effects happen all the time. And I feel that it's so different from meditation because you have this sense of oneness, a turning off of the self, but also because you get off of yourself. I think that's what's really remarkable about a Power of Eight group, the sense of altruism that happens. Because when you're in a group and you're doing intention, you're not just focused on the self. You know, that's one of the big problems with the self-help movement. It's all about self-focus. And I have found now thousands of times that when people send intention to someone else, there is an extraordinary mirror effect, a rebound effect that occurs with them too. There is an extraordinary healing power of altruism. That was apparent in a really interesting study by a psychologist who was also a priest, who wanted to see what would happen with prayer for mental illness. There's plenty of studies of prayer for physical illness, but what would happen if he had people praying for people who were depressed? So he got 400 people with clinical depression, put them into two groups, had one group receive the prayer and the other group give the prayer. And afterward, he used a lot of psychological parameters to study how they did. He found out that the people who had given the prayer were extraordinarily and far better off than the ones who would receive the prayer. People who received the prayer were improved, but nowhere near as much as the people who had given the prayer. And so it caused him to realize that sending intention, healing intention in this way, is more powerful than receiving even on the people doing the sending. And the great thing about a group is you get to receive and send at the same time. And I saw this with, and I've seen this numerous times with my year-long Power of Eight Intention Masterclass. I run this once a year, and I not only teach people in-depth information about how to do intention, how to use it in relationships, the 13 keys to intention mastery, also how to avoid your own self-sabotage, because that's a big thing. But what's really fascinating to me is because I'm monitoring people month by month by month to see how they're improving, because we put them into Power of Eight groups and they stay in those groups and meet every week for an entire year. What we find is invariably everybody in the main is improving, but there are a few people who don't. And by the way, people who meet every week, week on week, pretty much 100% of them have some major life change. But occasionally we get people like Andy, shown here, Andy Spiros, who was doing all the things right. She was meeting with her group. She was an experienced spiritual person, meditator, but she was getting nowhere. She was trying to get a new job. She was going through a divorce, had two young kids, was an experienced and talented marketer and coach. And she was trying to find a new job and couldn't find anything. So I finally said to her, Andy, get off of yourself. Start intending for someone else. And I suggested that she get involved in a healing vigil we were doing for a young boy called Luke. Luke was 15 and in a fit of adolescent angst, after breaking up with his first serious girlfriend, he threw himself off a 40-foot structure onto hard ground. And Luke broke everything in his body. He got nerve damage, brain damage. Here's Luke right there. And doctors didn't even think he was going to live. So I had our master class do healing intention for Luke 3 successive Sundays, while his stepfather, who's the one who wrote to me to tell me about this, kept a running commentary of what was going on with Luke. And we found that the point that we were doing healing intention for Luke were just those moments when Luke made major improvements. Now, he got out of the hospital in record time. There he was sitting up just a very short time after coming in, and he was home within weeks. And here he is now as a healthy 18-year-old. So that was pretty amazing. It could have been good doctoring. It might have also been our intention. But more interesting than that is what happened to Andy. So Andy, immediately after that, gets a call out of nowhere. Here's her discussion about it.
Being instructed as part of a class to focus on somebody else, I felt a lightness right there. And then we started for Luke for a couple of weeks. And I want to say very quickly, within that first 2 weeks, I ended up getting a completely unexpected job offer. I wasn't looking for that type of job. I never thought this person would offer me a job. And I didn't even really expect that I would get any job offers because I hadn't really been putting myself out there in that 2 weeks. I've been doing some other stuff. So it was just totally out of the blue in every way you can humanly imagine. And it was right up my alley. I had a gift store for many years. I did product development for a lot of the manufacturers and the artists that I supported. And this was a job working for a prominent artist who needed help putting her art on products. So I was uniquely suited to that. Right. But, and yet I wasn't really thinking like, I closed my store, I want to be a product development person, but I was excited for it. It was just like the
thousands of times. I thought it some of the Masterclass 2020, that's the group just finishing up now, some of their successes. This is the kind of thing that happens when you meet in a group week after week after week. We had Margot, whose friend, and I'm changing the names for privacy, but Margot's friend Ben made it because the group was intending not only for people in the group, but also, as I've encouraged them to do, for people outside sometimes. Her friend Ben made a miraculously recovery from a heart attack and heart disease. Betsy had fibroids and they disappeared. Nancy's friend Carol is free of cancer. We've had a lot of cancer successes this year. Patsy's son, this was really cool. He got a job offer. He had been laid off because of COVID. And for 6 months, he was applying to something like 40 jobs a month and getting nowhere. And soon after their intention, he got a job offer. Marianne was really low on money and she needed about $5,000 and she got an unexpected windfall after her group sent intention. Deborah had a terrible, painful ankle for years. It's 90% better. Marcy secured a contract for a position. She was trying to get more work that pays 50% more than what she had been receiving. Lisa had terrible breast pain and tenderness and tension caused by cancer surgery, and it was gone. She was able to go back to normal sport. Deirdre and her husband were desperate for a dream home. They found it, they secured it. Raymond's our amazing success story. He had bone cancer. He was given a couple of weeks to live. They thought they were going to have to amputate and do all kinds of stuff. And his bone cancer miraculously healed after his intention. And the miraculously is his doctor's phrases. Michelle, this is a great story too. She reconnected with a boyfriend from 33 years ago, and she's now head over heels in love. She was somebody who wanted to have a new relationship. And we've got, 'cause percentage of the ones we've got. But I wanted to give you an idea of the extraordinary thing that happens when you give to give and then to receive. And my comment to that is, when you give, you do receive in every way. So here's a couple of tips I can give you that are really important, almost essential, very different from some other things that you might hear in spiritual practice. The most important thing I see for success is being specific. This is really, really important. So what that means is, don't intend for giant wins, giant, general types of intentions like world peace. I always tell my groups, don't intend for all of the members of the group to win the lottery. Intend for what each needs very specifically. Don't intend for a happy life. What does that look like? Don't intend for general health. If you want to heal the big toe on your right foot, intend for that. Don't intend for just a new relationship. Specify, what do you really want? And don't intend for $1 million. Intend for what you need. A lot of people think they need $1 million to be happy, but what they really mean is, and they're not telling people what they really want, telling the universe what they really want. What they want is maybe a different job, or 25,000 a new car or something like that, or more time to spend with their children or grandchildren, but not necessarily $1 million and everything else that entails. So intend for exactly what you want. And I'll give you another little tip that's really great that I talk to people all about. And this is because I'm a journalist. I tell them, be a reporter. Use the 5 W's and H that we're taught as journalists to use when we're putting an intro together, a lead of our story. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And remember, that how can be a bit elastic. Sometimes the how comes along in a way that you didn't expect. And the second big tip I can give you is to take baby steps. And by that, I mean, you don't have to do the whole intention in one go. Do it in stages. And this is what that looks like. So if you had a health issue, break it down. Make separate intentions for, like, a correct diagnosis, or the exact practitioner you think will most believe will help you to get well. We did that with many people on our master classes. Patty Rutledge sent an intention to find out the reason for her chronic fatigue. She had terrible chronic fatigue. And what ended up happening is she got a real brainwave after their intention to check for mold. And sure enough, there was toxic mold all through her dressing room. And that is the thing that caused her chronic fatigue. And as soon as that was cleaned up and a few other things, she is now hiking. She is great. So the exact practitioner to get you well, the cause of your illness, the right diet, the right supplements, the right exercises, the right treatment that's going to get you better. And also intend for that very moment of healing. And have the group do this with you. This is what's so important. And same for if you have a new career. Break it down. What's the best position for you? What's the best route to get there? What are the stages you need to reach your goal? How are you going to reach it? For a relationship, same thing. What exactly do you want? What's the type of person you'd like, and what you'd like to do to improve your relationship? And take each stage of the route to meeting that person and the moment that you've achieved a happy and fulfilling relationship. So do it in stages. instead of trying to swallow one giant intention in one go. Now, here's a couple of suggestions for a Power of 8 group before I start taking some questions. And also your recommendation for an intention we can do together. You don't have to have exactly 8. That came about by accident. If you've read my book, The Power of 8, you know that. I was just making a suggestion one night, and it turned out we started witnessing these miraculous healings when we put people in groups and have them send an intention to somebody in the group with a health challenge. So it can be 5, it can be 12. 8 is a nice medium Goldilocks figure. Not too small, not too big. Meet regularly. That's a key. Choose a target person. Design a specific intention statement. Make it specific, as I've mentioned. Gather into a circle. And this could be a virtual circle. In these days of COVID, we've got to meet. So gather into a circle. Start breathing together or doing something together, because what you want is your brain waves to go into synchrony. And that happens when you do things together. So breathing in and out the same times, deep inhale, deep exhale is one way of getting there. Hold the intention in your heart and remember, success, hold it for this kind of priming. You don't. All we ever do is 10 minutes and we see miraculous successes. Then compare experiences. And that's the basics of it. I would recommend you read The Power of 8 for more detailed instruction about how to get into the zone, how to run your groups. And also, of course, if you're interested in instruction from me, join my Power of 8 Intention Masterclass 2021, which is kicking off February 6th. And my doors are open now. We run this just once a year. Own very tailored Power of 8 group in their time zone. So that's what I want to talk to you about, but I want to run a little Power of 8 group with you, or a power of many thousands, hopefully. But before I do, I want to stop the share and I want to take some questions from you. So if you have questions, let's put them in the questions. I've got a first one here from Sue Lynn. Hi, Sue Lynn. Thanks for coming. She says, do you repeat an intention daily? You don't have to. You don't have to do this all the time. You don't have to do this over and over and over again. I would do it a few times and then drop it and go on to someone else. Okay, and someone else says, let's look at some of the chat here. Somebody said, is this recorded? Sure, it's on Facebook Live. Okay, and somebody else asked for, here we go. Is it better to break down a big intention for the whole body or a whole life and start with smaller parts which might be more measurable or visible? Absolutely, and hope different types of meditation. I'm thinking about focused meditation, which also creates gamma waves. Yes, it does. But what happens in the brain, signaling what's going on in the body, is very, very different. We've measured it, we've compared it, and gamma waves give you a sense, an oceanic sense of connection. But what we've found is that people enter into a state where the actual self during group intention is turned off. And I believe that's the place of healing. Now, what I want to say this, there's loads and loads of different ways of healing out there, and loads of them work. One thing I recommend for everybody is don't mix up modalities. You don't need to call in archangels. You don't need to call in purple flames. You don't need to add meditation to this. If you do meditation, do meditation. If you're doing intention, I know what works. I've studied it. I've tested it. We've studied it in the laboratory with dozens of scientists. And what we find is certain techniques seem to work in group intention. And is it enough with one session per intention, says Heidi? Or should the same or similar intention be treated during more than one session? I think the whole point is not to obsess on something. If something isn't working, like Andy, Spiros, move on, get off of it and go on to something else. How many? There is no set number, Heidi. Oftentimes a few sessions will work. If it's not working, then break it down and go into baby steps. Okay, an intention for Diana. She's in the final phase of bone cancer, suffering from a lot of pain. She's in the hospital. She lives in Finland. She needs a spontaneous remission right now. Okay, now that's Agnieszka. That would be great. Would you write her full name, please? And where her bone cancer is, if you have more details, that would be great. If you aren't part of a group, will this work if you're doing it by yourself? Not as well as if you're in a group. Intention works individually, no question, but better it's supersized in a group, particularly when you're taking turns giving and receiving. So one of the things to do, if you want a group and you're not part of one, there are many ways to do it. You can join my year-long intention masterclass, which is kicking off now. And I'm thrilled to let you guys know that it's still at an early bird price. So there's still an opportunity to get that if you'd like and save $100. And I just want to let you know too, we have limited numbers of the early bird ones. So if this is of any interest to you, check it out soon. If that isn't part of what you want to do, can't afford it, you can't commit to something like that, no problem. We have a group called Connecting and Healing with the Power of 8. It's a group on Facebook. Everybody is welcome. You just join it and you can request to be part of an existing group or create one yourself and just let people know what time zone you're in. And also, I'll be announcing soon, I have a new website, lynnmctaggart.com. We've just revamped it. And we have a new community section that is being built. When we do, we will have an area there for Power of 8 groups. So there's other ways to do it too. How and when do you manage feedback for a focus person or for other participants during the current or next session or during the time in between? Well, the answer to that is both, actually. I would give immediate feedback because oftentimes what's so interesting about the group members is that they have extraordinary experiences during the intention. And one time, I've seen this many, many times, but oftentimes what they'll do is send an intention to someone and have the same visualizations. I'll give you a wonderful example of that. Recently, in my 2020 intention masterclass, there are a group of women in one of the groups, and one of their friends lives in California, and the California fires were coming right straight for her house. So they all intended to stop the fire so it wouldn't hit her house. And literally, it was like across the street. And they were intending to stop the fire. And as they did that, they all imagined, or a batch of them had a similar visualization, imagining a protective dome over their friend's house. So they did that. And the several days later, they were shocked to hear that there was a circle, literally a circle around their friend's house. This is unbelievable, but they sent this in as a comment on from this masterclass. And not only was there a circle around this, almost like there had been a dome over it, but there was literally no ash in her house. And the firemen found that this one place of refuge became their sort of central place where they gathered in fighting the fire. So it was amazing. So it's great to share what's gone on, but it's also great to share what happens in the coming weeks. So I oftentimes tell people to have a lot of feedback and keep records so that they can share with their groups. Do you hold the intention for 10 minutes for each participant? Ideally, yes. Have I done a study of my group versus a group that's read my book and is going forward on their own? We've had healings from people who are working in the book with the book. We've had healings with people who are doing it for the first time. Many people I've talked about, I mean, I speak at groups all the time, and I put people in groups at the end of my talk. And we find that there are members of the group who have extraordinary healings right then and there. I mean, we had a woman a year ago who was paralyzed from the neck down. And at the end of the 10 minutes, when we were asking for feedback, she stood up and talked. I've had people, you know, where they're not even a sender, a receiver, they're a sender, and they have extraordinary changes in their lives. What I think happens when people work with me for an entire year is we see higher results, in the sense that the people who arrive and are there week after week after week, as I said, when we've studied it, pretty much 100% of the people have some sort of major change in their lives. And so I like to say that the really important piece here is showing up. I think that is probably the most important element of all. The fact that people commit to meeting week after week after week is the thing that really is extraordinary. Is it important to say the intention in your head during send-in, or is it okay to just feel it through your heart? I think somebody needs to say it out loud. You need to actually lock in those words. Do we set a time frame for the intention, or just set the intention and then leave space for the rest to happen with divine timing? No, you set a time frame. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. When leaving a space for the rest to happen with divine timing is a little bit like prayer. It's saying, universe, you decide. Intention is your request, respectful requests, but it's your request to the universe. So tell the universe what you want. Can people, if people don't show up to a meeting, can we still do it even if we're fewer people? You can, as long as you've got what counts as a group. Okay, there's a group of us that are in the Phoenix area thinking of joining the masterclass for a year. Can we be in the same group? Nancy, if you write specifically to Laura at wddty.co.uk or info@lynnmctaggart.com and request that, yes, we will do that. We generally suggest people come in and work with strangers, because when they see that this works, even with people they haven't ever met before, it's pretty extraordinary. I think if you are a doubting Thomas, it certainly convinces you. But it's okay to do that. If you have a very specific group, sure. Okay, Martha says, I'm deeply in immediate need of healing. I'd like to know how I can join a group and start praying for others' needs. As I mentioned, Martha, connecting and healing through the power of 8. Check out my community site. We're going to be setting up. We have a new community site being organized now, and it will soon be live where we'll be able to organize power of 8 groups. Is meeting online as efficient as meeting in a group? Well, all I can tell you is I've seen thousands of cases of miracles, and they're all virtual. Every week, my group, my whole community does an intention of the week for 3 people with serious health challenges. And we've had miracle after miracle after miracle. And not only have we never met the person, it's usually just a photograph that we're looking at, but the people doing the healing have never met. They're not together. The people in my master classes are meeting virtually. There have been a few cases where people, it becomes your intention family after a while because you're meeting with them every week, even though they've never physically met before. They become, it's extraordinary. And this is part of the healing too that I think is so different. It's extraordinary to have a stranger praying for you, a whole group of strangers who've got your back week after week, who probably know more about you in many ways than your own family. So it doesn't matter if you meet them in person, but many of our groups are so compelled because they feel so close to each other to get together in person. I know we had one group last year. I think they drove as far as 500 miles away to get together. So it's really quite fun. How important is it to feel compassion for the person you're intending for? Well, I think that goes without saying. I don't think you can do intention for someone effectively if you don't engage your heart. You have to. If you feel hatred for that person or indifference for that person, it really isn't going to work. And how important is it that the person who's getting the power is included, said Lena. I think what you have to do is ask their permission, Lena. So you include them in that way. Do they have to be part of the circle? Not necessarily. And okay, what's the cost, says Catherine, for my course? It is ordinarily $599 for the year, but it's $499 for early bird price. So you save $100, nearly 20%. So you can find that out by going to lynnmctaggart.com and just go on my courses and find Intention Masterclass 2021. And how would I compare intention to Reiki? Remember, and she says it feels a lot like the same, except Reiki is generally not done with a group, says Johan. Well, Reiki is a healing system that's done individually. And this is all about a group. It's also about being very, very specific. So there are certain differences, but as I said earlier, so many different methods of healing work. Reiki works, reconnective healing works, healing touch works. So many issues like that work. They have subtle differences. And the only important thing is to keep their own modalities sacrosanct and to do it as they suggest rather than trying to mishmash. And I think, let's see, some more. Should the person who's being intended for hold the intention in the same way as those in the group directing the intention, says Rona? No, the person getting the intention just opens up his heart to receive. When we've had a Power of 8 session group and the intention is finished, that's it. Do you stay and share the experiences afterward and give feedback with each other? Says Biga, I think. yes, as I mentioned earlier, I think that's a really great thing to do because you can see how group mind has happened. And also, in many cases, the person is healed right then and there. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. In the case of Maya, the woman I said who got out of her wheelchair, she was healed right away. In the case of Sandy, who was talking about those big mitts going around her knee, she was healed right away. She did a deep squat, and thousands of them are like that. Um, in your essentials course, so Nancy Jane, who was part of my intention essentials course earlier this year, our foundation course, said we practiced in a way that each person in the group gets time for their own intention worked on. So we go around the table and everybody got a few minutes. Should we do that? Answer, no. I think, Nancy, it's better to do a few people each time. Remember, you're sending and you're receiving, but you're receiving when you're sending. So not everybody has to be covered every Saturday. I think what's really important is to do maybe 2 or 3 in a session, meet for about an hour, and then take turns. And the next time it's your turn, perhaps, so you're not getting an intention every week. But I think the Power of 8 groups that I've worked with on our masterclass, I think that's what's really important. Okay, let's see. Could you write in the chat the name of the Facebook group we can join? That is Connecting and Healing with the Power of 8. Jorgelina has said, are there limitations to some kind of illnesses to intend for? Can we intend for healing a broken ligament on a knee or scoliosis? Absolutely. I have a woman on video who had a genetic condition called alpha-1 antitryptase inhibitor, I think it is. And it was essentially a liver condition. And she did an intention to and asked for an intention in a group the first time she met, just to heal the situation. Now, this was a genetic issue from birth. This is supposedly incurable. And afterwards, she felt enormous heat through her body. And within the next day, she had a deep sense that she was healed. And when she got checked out by 2 different consultants, they said she was completely healed. So if you've got a situation like scoliosis, which may have been from birth, you have a situation of a torn ligament. We've had many, many cases like that. I remember one guy with very severe scoliosis, and he felt like his spine was being stretched during the intention. He was very bent over, and he could hardly breathe he was having trouble breathing, and his breathing really improved. So Tara says, how's this new course different from the essential course I just completed? It's a follow-on, Tara. The one you did is a foundation course. The Intention Masterclass really brings it into your life. So you learn how to do intention for relationships. You learn how to stop sabotaging yourself. You learn deep time travel techniques that I teach. You learn how to be much more sensitive to other people's intentions, where you can read them far better. And you learn 13 keys. So there's some overlap in the very beginning of the course, talking about some important things like being specific in deeper detail. But there's loads of other things about timing, the right time, the right place, a lot of things like that. And how do you nominate somebody for a healing? For that, you mean my intentions of the week. You go into my website where it has experiments and go into intentions of the week, and you can nominate people on the website. Okay, so negative feedback. Some want to give their own feelings of what they think is beneficial for the person instead of focusing on the person healing. I think what is really important with intention, group intention, is to respect another person's wishes and not tell them what you think they ought to have. So I am really, really, really set on asking people's permission, unless it is a child, a small child, or somebody, say, in a coma. I think it's really important to ask people's permission for things. And that means also their permission of the kind of intention they would like. Seema, have I ever published my experimental results? Absolutely. Um, I have them all in my book, The Power of Eight. I have them on my website. Our experiment, we did one experiment where we actually published the results in a scientific paper and presented them. That was our seed experiment, which we did 6 times. So yes, everything I've and that's
Hello, Lynn. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Sorry to interrupt. I think you're muted. If you could just hit unmute, please.
sorry. Thank you.
No
Okay,
worries.
apologies, everybody. My internet has been playing up. So Stella asked, what happens to the group once the year-long masterclass finishes? Well, after the course is finished, and practicing with you so that they can do, I send weekly tips, advice, guidance, as well as having 6 2-hour sessions and then 4 other sessions throughout the year that are quarterly to teach people new things. But I'm sending all kinds of things, people are monitored. So you get that kind of big hand holding through the year, but you can carry on forever. And I have groups who have been meeting for years, and this has become their intention family. This is, these are the people who've got their back. If we're not able to join at the time of the live meetings, would there be recordings to listen to later, says Leslie? Absolutely, Leslie. We record everything. So we have people, for instance, in the Far East who join, New Zealand and Australian people who don't want to get up at 3 in the morning because I. everything is recorded. So questions. Right. My brother-in-law Sam had meningitis and encephalitis and he can't walk, says Frank. Doctors say he may not recover fully. Should we set incremental intentions or full healing? I think you try full healing and for him to walk. And if try that for a while, or for him to walk a certain distance, or, start off with a smaller win and then see what happens. But keep working on it and see what happens. Many things like that. We've seen extraordinary situations. Let's see. Erica in Germany said, I'm one of 9 members of a Power of 8 group. See, it doesn't have to be 8, guys. And she says, we experienced unbelievable healing during this time. We meet every week on Zoom since February 2020, and it seems we're very close and connected around the globe. My members live in Mexico, US, UK, Ireland, Egypt, Israel, and Germany. And we didn't meet personally until now. We're all so blessed. Thank you so much, Erica, for that. Let's see. Okay, I think it's time for us to do an intention together. Thank you very much. And somebody said, Johan said the connection drops every now and then. Is it a problem at Lynn's End or Zoom? I think it's been Zoom. Zoom has been really weird today. Right, okay. And somebody said, will I upgrade my internet package? We have a very, very good link usually. I think there's some problem with Zoom. I never have this kind of situation. So don't worry about our connection. We would make sure that it's fine. Okay, and if my Zoom keeps freezing up, we will check what's going on. We never have this issue, so we'll find out if what's going on. And if we did have an issue where something froze, let's decide on an intention, everybody, something that we can all do together and connect with, okay? So, and I see my internet connection is not good. We've had terrible rain today, so it may well be that. I hope I'm showing up now. So, do we have anybody who wants to suggest an intention? I mean, we've got real problems in America with very, very high COVID rates. We have, of course, so many issues with unemployment now. So big issues like that, or we can do something really focused. No more, somebody said no more COVID intentions. All right, so let's intend for something specific, okay? So I would like somebody, let's nominate somebody that you know for us to send an intention to, okay? Let me see if I've got anybody on Facebook who is talking about this too. Let's see. Any suggestions, just write them in the chat, and then let's do an intention together, okay? Let's see. Okay. Right, okay, wow. My husband's needing gallbladder surgery. That's, my goodness. They're coming in fast and furiously. My husband's needing gallbladder to dissolve. Tracy, no. He needs to be happy with this intention if you're saying, should we just intend for his gallstones to heal? Yes, we could do something like that. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Okay, Diane. Diane, yes. Diane, we have somebody with cancer who they wrote about Diane earlier. Can somebody, are you still on? If you are, can we get information about who that is so we can hold intention for her? And let's see. Okay. I need people to write, not my husband, I need their name, or my sister, or somebody like that. I need somebody. I need a full name, okay? Okay, now. Okay, here's quite a good one here because we have a name. Right, everybody. And I want to let you have a little experience in doing this. Okay, we have. Okay, here, Braden Aldrich has just had a mini stroke. He's in the hospital after a massive one that left him paralyzed on his left side. So let's intend, but I'm a little confused about that. Let's intend for resolution that he's completely and totally healed from his mini stroke. So I'm going to get everybody to just take a deep inhale and a deep exhale. I'm going to give you the intention statement, and then I want to share this with some music. I think we're going to intend for Braden Aldrich, who's just had a mini stroke and in the hospital after a massive one that left him paralyzed on his left side. So our intention is that Braden Aldrich be immediately, completely, and totally healed from his mini stroke and also the stroke that he paralyzed him, and that he has full movement in his left side and is healthy and well in every way. So I'm going to just include that in an intention. Now I want you won't be able to hear me for a moment. You'll hear me on this, but this is just a little experience for you, okay? So you'll hear me on this recording. It's when I did this, a talk, and I put people into groups. So this will give you an idea of what a group feels like. Okay, let's take a deep inhale and a deep exhale. And a deep inhale and a deep exhale. Deep inhale, deep exhale. Deep inhale. And now on the exhalation, send the intention through from your head. Formulate the intention, send it from your head to your heart, and then shoot it out to the recipient. Allow it to just unfurl from your heart like the tendrils of a plant. Are all one single entity, one single powerful energy, sending healing energy to your recipient. Okay, everybody, in your own time, come back onto the call. And just come back into the room. Thank you so much for being part of this. It's been really enjoyable for me to be able to interact with you all live, which is just so exciting and almost as good as being in person. If you want to find out more about my Power of 8 Intention Masterclass 2021, remember, go to my website, lynnmctaggart.com, go to courses and check out Power of 8 Intention Masterclass 2021. And you'll find out all the details about what happens in the course over the year. And remember, if you want to take it, why not take advantage of the early bird price and save yourself $100? Anyway, it's been such a pleasure being here with you. I've really loved it. The other thing I want to tell you, and I'll be announcing it more on Facebook too, is we have a giant intention experiment that's going to happen on the 20th of December at the same time of, I believe it is 6 p.m. UK time. So that's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a huge experiment to end polarization. We're going to have lots of different groups, people who are polarized, police and African Americans, Republicans and Democrats, different little clusters of them doing an intention together. to see what happens. So please make sure to join me. And don't forget, check out the masterclass and everything else I do, lynnmctaggart.com. Thanks again. See you soon.